thank you for pushing play on 15 Minutes with Fuzz, a show about the positive things happening in and around Washington County, Wisconsin. My name is Fuzz Martin, and each week we talk about the people, events, organizations, and opportunities that make Washington County a great place to live. This week, we're talking about a company that is invested in the community, as they do with each of the communities where they reside. Steve Kenitz is the quality manager for Milwaukee Tool, and he joins me on today's show to talk about the company, its values, what brought them to West Bend, and all of the things they do for the community. Well, actually, just some of the things they do for the community, because this is a 15-minute podcast. With that, here are 15 minutes on Milwaukee Tool in West Bend with Steve Kenitz on 15 Minutes with Fuzz. Steve, thanks for coming in. So Milwaukee Tool celebrated its 100th anniversary last year, which is pretty amazing. Can you give us a brief overview of the company, how Milwaukee Tool became such a well-known name in the industry and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously not a historian. I've actually only been with the company coming up on 3 years now. So obviously there's a lot of details and points that I'm not very familiar with, but a little bit of background. So obviously founded in 1924 by A.H. Peterson, actually kind of a response to the Ford Motor Company and Henry Ford.
Okay.
Kind of where we got our start was actually with the 1/4-inch portable drill that they were needing to use for their assembly lines. It was actually a product called the hole shooter. So it was actually the first lightweight one-handed drill, which kind of revolutionized the productivity that Ford Motor Company had at their manufacturing lines.
Excellent.
Yeah, so, and then kind of going on. So after that, World War II obviously was a very big kind of economic booster with all the different companies across the country trying to help the war effort.
Yep.
So with that, again, kind of just building off the original hole shooter that we had, going to more like 1/2-inch drills, some kind of focusing more on the portable products that we can try to offer the different manufacturers. And then kind of after World War II, there were a couple ups and downs, but not to skip too far forward, really what set Milwaukee apart and when they really kind of exploded onto the scene was actually as recently as in the 2000s. So about 20 years ago, Steve Richmond came in as the president and CEO of Milwaukee Tool and really wanted to focus on kind of resetting what Milwaukee Tool is about and what we do. Kind of shifting the vision and scope of what Milwaukee kind of views itself as. Rather than being a power tool company, we actually like to think ourselves as a solutions company. So we're not just making tools, we're making solutions for the end user, for our customers. Really what kind of drives setting us apart is focusing on not just the end user, but kind of the professional. Not to say that Milwaukee Tool doesn't care about, Bob the DIYer.
Sure.
But if we focus on Jim the electrician, the one that's professionally using these tools day in and day out in the field, not really having to worry about Bob the DIYer is kind of something that comes along with that. So if we're focusing on making the highest quality products that we know that the people using them 40, 50, 60 hours a week are, now me, myself using products in the garage, they're going to be more than good for that.
Sure. You trust the products that the pros trust, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of that, the product line is incredibly diverse. So you do have power tools, you do have PPE, you've got everything in between. What sets Milwaukee Tool apart in that space? What makes them that notch above?
Again, kind of going back to the point I was talking about where, again, we're looking for solutions, not just tools, right? So that's where, your heated jackets, your first aid kits, all the vacuum products that we now make, all sorts of different things that if it's going to help a customer, in the field, in the line, that's what we're about.
Sure, certainly. I've got some friends and family that work at Milwaukee Tool. They're very proud of the company's culture and its values. Can you share more about the culture of Milwaukee Tools and how it shapes day-to-day operations, both as a company as a whole and here in West Bend?
Yeah, a lot of companies, a lot of people get a new job, they preach culture. A lot of it might be lip service. At Milwaukee, coming from the top down, again, from Steve Richmond, our president and CEO, really tries to drive that point home. And actually, it's kind of baked into how we actually evaluate whether it's a new position that has a candidate applying, or if we're just kind of evaluating our own teams that we have internally already is, how good of a culture fit are they? We have a handful of different cultural pillars that we expect of our employees here, where we actually kind of make sure that, we're focusing on the right thing. So, being open and candid, with somebody that you're not just, turning into a yes man and
Sure.
giving people the answers they want to hear, empowering people to be, to take responsibility and take charge of projects they're working on, things like that. So we actually really focus on that from a, management and leadership side, but also, there's things that we do internally to kind of reward people as well with, that exemplify our cultural aspects that we really want to drive and really want to push.
Great. It sounds like you kind of have a practice what you preach mentality over there, right? And how does that then reflect into the product that is created?
Kind of the same thing, right? So, we push for people to be open and upfront and candid and real and truthful with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, Milwaukee is a very large company. The West Bend facility that we have here locally might be different than how we operate at one of our different sites. But
Sure.
With that kind of cultural push coming from the top down, we all kind of operate the same in that aspect. So if we have operators here at our West Bend plant where, they think one of the processes we do just doesn't make sense, we encourage them to speak up.
Sure.
If something doesn't smell right, say it.
Yeah, excellent. So speaking of the West Bend facility, it's relatively new. Broke ground in 2020, right? I believe.
Yes, correct. Broke ground in 2020, and then we actually had our grand opening in August of 2022. There are obviously people in the facility before that. But,
Sure.
Our grand opening ceremony was August in 2022.
What inspired Milwaukee Tool to expand to the West Bend area here and grow within our community?
Yeah, so some background on the West Bend facility. Obviously broke ground in 2022, grand opening 2 years later. The focus for the West Bend facility is hand tools that are made in the USA. So everything that we do is made right here in West Bend. We don't outsource anything overseas. It's all done here, right here in West Bend. Hand tools is a relatively new business unit to Milwaukee Tool, obviously focusing on the power tools and portable aspect like we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
Hand tools launched, I believe, again, not a historian, I might have my date wrong here, but I believe in 2011 was when Milwaukee came out with their first, kind of having hand tools operate as their own business unit.
Sure.
And with that, the one thing that Milwaukee didn't have was a made in USA line. So what a lot of different unions, trade groups, things like that, if you're a 17-year-old, 18-year-old looking to become a union electrician, a lot of times what those unions will require is, they'll give you a list of tools that you need to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those are going to be required to be made in USA. So
Sure.
there's a very large portion of customers that we basically had 0% market share in
Mm-hmm.
because we didn't have the products that they could purchase. So with that came the need for made in USA hand tools, which is what we do here in West Bend. With that, then currently what we produce is several different SKUs of cutting pliers and about 19 SKUs currently of screwdrivers.
Okay.
And obviously we're not going to just continue to do just that forever.
Sure.
Down the line, eventually, I'm sure there's other projects and products that will make public to all the customers out there.
Excellent. So how many individuals do you have employed here in the West Bend facility?
Between, just the operators, engineers, management, things like that, all in all, we're at about 225 to 250 in that ballpark.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's great. Sometimes you go like out to lunch and, like show up at B-Dubs or something and there's a whole table full of Milwaukee Tool polos on or this time of year jackets, I guess. Do you currently have any roles open for anyone who's interested in joining the team? What kind of roles are available?
So at any given time, we have a handful of different roles that are open, anywhere from just an operator to engineers,
Sure.
HR, things like that. So kind of a broad spectrum of different opportunities that we have here in West Bend.
And when somebody joins the Milwaukee Tool team as an employee, and specifically maybe here in West Bend, what kinds of opportunities for growth and advancement do they have within the company?
It all kind of depends on what the employee wants to do, right? So we like to keep things internal. Obviously, if there's a good candidate that comes from elsewhere, we're going to take a look at them. But
Sure.
One thing that Milwaukee really prides themselves on is investing in their current employees. So whether it's training and development, classes they want to take, certifications they want to get, there's all sorts of different avenues that employees can explore for developing themselves for whether it's a completely different opportunity, whether it be in West Bend, Brookfield, our corporate office, things like that.
Sure.
But we're always kind of, we're always growing, we're always shifting, we're always changing. So, we've had more than I can count instances where we have somebody that goes from being an operator to a setup tech to a quality tech, an engineering tech. There's always opportunities that we have, not just internal to West Bend, but within the company as well. That people, we have brought people up and built them, and they've taken the opportunity to grow. But also, we've had some employees that the next step for them they see is maybe getting in into the new product development side of things and maybe taking a job at our Brookfield office or downtown Milwaukee office.
Sure. And you're a quality manager, right?
Correct.
So what does that role mean for you? What do you get to do there?
A handful of different things. What me and my team focus on is a lot of the kind of improvement to the processes that we currently have now. Making sure we're not scrapping as many products, making sure our processes are more robust, making sure that documentation is all in line, making sure we're setting up our operations team for success. Quality is kind of obviously its own little thing, but quality is also a part of everything that we do at Milwaukee Tool as well.
Sure. Okay, excellent. Milwaukee Tool has a strong community impact team, and you've got initiatives focused on housing, hunger, education, veterans. Can you share some of the examples of how Milwaukee Tool is making a difference in those specific areas?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually one of the more rewarding parts of my job. I actually am the chair for the community impact team at West Bend.
Oh, excellent.
So I have about 4 or 5 people that are on that team with me. Again, you mentioned the pillars that we have: housing, hunger, education, and veterans. Being a new facility, it's we've had a little bit of a challenge trying to find new organizations to partner with. But in about the year and a half that we've actually had a community impact team, we've found a lot of great organizations that are just right here in West Bend, and some others within Washington County as well. We're a very strong partner with Habitat for Humanity here in West Bend for the Washington Dodge County chapter. Fortunate part with that was we already had a very strong relationship with them through our corporate offices, and that was one that we didn't really have to build. We just kind of picked it up and ran with it.
Sure.
We're also partnering with Full Shelf Food Pantry.
We want it to be full shelf and not half shelf. That's why we have partners here.
Correct. We partner with Kurt at the Veterans Office downtown here. We've done a handful of events with him and his team. That's honestly probably been one of the more rewarding projects or partners that we've gotten. Some of the big efforts that we've done there. We've done a lot of grave marking for the Memorial Day Flag Project. So if your listeners aren't aware, every Memorial Day, all the grave sites for the veterans of Washington County, whether it's a small, 10 gravesite cemetery to, a 1,000-site grave cemetery, what we've been doing is going around with all of the old documents that they may have from the churches where, when they're trying to go mark these sites for the Memorial Day flags, they are using 30, 40-year-old pieces of paper, just trying to find the names at the cemetery. What they've actually done is developed an app that you can have in your smartphone where we're taking those lists, but then we're going into the app, and as we're going to each gravestone, finding each veteran, we actually log it in the app, and it actually drops a pin where that gravesite is. So when they have to go back and mark the headstones, they just pull up the app and they have all the grave sites they need to mark, and it just makes the whole process so much more efficient and doesn't take as much manpower and time for them to get that done.
Sure. My family and I, our daughters, every year we'd go and mark the flags. And it's usually it used to be a sheet of paper and then people shouting out a name and then everybody looking, trying to find where that headstone. And again, sometimes they're super worn down and hard to read. And
I'm going off memory here, but I believe at one point when we first got this project kicked off, I believe there was upwards of 8,000 or 9,000 grave sites in Washington County that needed to be marked. It might not be that high, but it was more significant number than I had expected.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected.
So that's one thing we're trying to continue to have, not just our community impact team, but all the employees at West Bend to try to participate in. One of the great things about Milwaukee Tool is we actually offer paid volunteer time to every single employee. So somebody might have vacations and time off they want to spend with their kids. We actually have a separate bucket of time that is just allowed for volunteering. So they're not having to use their own personal time. They're getting paid and compensated to volunteer and partake in those activities.
Excellent. What are some of the milestones that Milwaukee Tool is most proud of, and what's next on the horizon?
Obviously, the 100-year anniversary is a huge one, right? A lot of companies don't even make it past the 1, 2, 3, 10-year mark. So the 100-year celebration was really a huge milestone for the company. And kind of the moniker we had at that was, we're just getting started, right? Obviously, a lot of the growth recently in the last couple decades has really launched Milwaukee to the front of the scene. And I feel like that moniker of the just getting started is really true. We're just scratching the surface on what we can do in terms of creating solutions for all of our end users. But for the West Bend plant alone, again, we're a new facility. We're constantly changing. We're just really looking forward to all the other opportunities that are going to be coming our way for what's going to be next for West Bend.
Excellent. You have a partnership with Moraine Park Technical College. Can you talk about that partnership and what that brings both to the community, the students, and the company?
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of got rolling with them. We wanted to see if a couple of people at West Bend could even just get involved with some of the boards they have. And that relationship has really evolved with some of the other members of the leadership team at West Bend. We, this past year, actually donated a few $100,000 worth of equipment to Moraine Park.
Great. It
was equipment that we were using, essentially brand new equipment that we may have realized maybe it just wasn't for us, or we didn't need it moving forward, things like that. So what we really want to do is give back to obviously a local technical college that really focuses on the trades, on the specific things that we're also looking for in West Bend. And that's not to say that we're just trying to, get a relationship so we can just steal talent from there, right?
Right.
We just truly want to invest in the younger generation coming up that wants to get into the trades, or even people that have been in a career for 20 years and realize it's not for them and they want to go back to, be a plumber, HVAC technician, electrician, anything like that. We just want to make sure that we're taking care of realistically the source of where we might get a lot of our employees from, and whether or not they come to Milwaukee Tool or not, we just want to make sure that we're supporting those kind of foundation pieces in the community for benefiting the trades as a whole.
Absolutely. That's a great part of that mission to better the community for sure. So for those who are here in Washington County, might be considering a career at Milwaukee Tool or perhaps supporting your community initiatives, what's the best way to get involved? Where can they check out jobs or any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we have a LinkedIn page, Facebook page. If you just Google Milwaukee Tool careers or jobs, everything will be on there. You can always stop by and pick up or drop off a resume.
Sure.
We don't really do the paper applications, I don't believe anymore. It's pretty much all online now, I believe.
Yeah,
but obviously to get involved with us in terms of like the community impact projects, obviously we want you to be a Milwaukee Tool employee.
Yep.
But there's always going to be opportunities here in West Bend for us, whether it's job openings, community impact projects, opportunities for once you're in the company, things like that. And again, we're always looking for more help on the community impact side. There's no shortage of work to be done here in the community. We're always looking to find new partners, new organizations to get with and help. And we can support them in multiple ways. I know we've been kind of hitting on the volunteer portion of it, but we've done tool donations for some of the local schools and organizations. We've done monetary donations and sponsorships, things like that. So
Sure.
There's multiple different ways that we can get involved with the community and give back. It's not just time, but there's many other ways that we like to make an impact here in West Bend and Washington County.
Awesome. Well, we're extremely glad to have you in the community. I told you I swapped over a whole line of tools in my garage because you guys put a plan here and invested in our community. But we really appreciate it. And Steve, I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you again to Steve Kenitz of Milwaukee Tool for joining me on this week's episode of 15 Minutes with Fuzz. If you ever have an idea for the show, shoot me a message. Email fuzz@fuzzmartin.com. That is fuzz@fuzzmartin.com. Or you can use the form at fuzzmartin.com/guest. 15 Minutes with Fuzz is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, at fuzzmartin.com, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. New episodes come out on Tuesdays, and I will talk to you next Tuesday right here on 15 Minutes with Fuzz.